Once, when I was 12, I came home with a B on a math test. I had studied hard too, but it wasn't enough. My father's voice echoed in my mind as he looked at the paper. "That's all you got? A B is for losers. You're supposed to be my son, and this is all you can manage? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" After he was done berating me, I was sent to my room, where I stayed until morning. My mom would come in every now and then, looking at me like I was some kind of disappointment. Each time she came in, she called me a loser, and that she regretted ever giving birth to me. My heart broke more and more each time she came in. A few weeks later, I accidentally broke a plate while washing the dishes. My dad beat me so badly and then locked me in the basement for a day with no food or water. I had had enough. As I got older, I learned to live with it, to brace myself for the constant storms. But even then, a part of me longed for an escape, a way out of their toxic grip. People always said that family should come first. Blood is thicker than water and all that. But growing up, my parents were anything but a source of comfort. They were incredibly unstable and full of sharp, unexpected bursts of anger. And it really didn't take much to make them angry. Even as a kid, I knew something was wrong. Most of my friends' parents didn't yell at them for dropping a fork or spilling juice on the carpet. But my parents were different. They found every excuse to belittle me, to remind me that I wasn't good enough, that I'd never be anything. Every time I did the slightest thing wrong, they would scream at me and make me feel like a little bug. One evening stands out more vividly than others. I must have been 8 or 9. We were sitting around the dinner table, and I'd accidentally knocked over my glass of milk. The look my father gave me, cold and furious, sent a shiver down my spine. He slammed his fist on the table, making the plates rattle. "Do you ever do anything right, Scott? You're as clumsy as a damn elephant. I paid good money for that milk and you stupidly just spilled without a care in the world. I should take a belt to your hands and make you think twice next time." "I'm so sorry, Dad. I swear it won't happen again." "Please don't whip me!" My mom just sat there, lips pursed, like she always did. She was more of a silent accomplice, never sticking up for me, never stepping in. She'd let Dad do the yelling and just nod along, her gaze shifting away whenever I tried to catch her eye. That night, he thankfully didn't use his belt on me, but he made me scrub the floor until my hands were raw, calling me names the entire time. It wasn't the only time, not by a long shot. Once, when I was 12, I came home with a B on a math test. I had studied hard too, but it wasn't enough. My father's voice echoed in my mind as he looked at the paper. "That's all you got? A B is for losers. You're supposed to be my son, and this is all you can manage? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" After he was done berating me, I was sent to my room, where I stayed until morning. My mom would come in every now and then, looking at me like I was some kind of disappointment. Each time she came in, she called me a loser, and that she regretted ever giving birth to me. My heart broke more and more each time she came in. A few weeks later, I accidentally broke a plate while washing the dishes. My dad beat me so badly and then locked me in the basement for a day with no food or water. I had had enough. As I got older, I learned to live with it, to brace myself for the constant storms. But even then, a part of me longed for an escape, a way out of their toxic grip. In my early 20s, I couldn't take their controlling behavior anymore. So one night, I escaped from home and went to my girlfriend's house. Her family welcomed me, and I explained everything to them.
"Scott, you didn't deserve any of that. No one does. You're not a disappointment and you're not a failure. You're a good person, and you deserve to be treated with respect."
I felt a lump rise in my throat, and I looked away, not wanting her to see the tears that had started to form. She reached out, gently touching my face, turning me back to her.
"Listen to me. You don't owe them anything. You don't have to keep them in your life just because they're your parents. You have the right to protect yourself."
I wish it was that easy.
"It can be. I'll help."
Her words hit me like a revelation. I had always felt like I had no choice, like I was obligated to endure their abuse because they were my family. But Claire was right. I didn't owe them anything. While staying at Claire's house, we began dating, and a year later, we got married. My parents, on the other hand, never even looked for me or filed a missing person report. They simply ignored the fact that I had escaped. Claire supported me every step of the way, always reminding me that I had the power to choose who I let into my life. But they didn't take it well. One day, my parents saw me on TV. I had become rich and successful, all thanks to Claire and her dad. Her dad had helped me become a successful realtor. As for my parents, they had made some investments that went horribly wrong. They were scammed out of hundreds of dollars by a fake investment company promising amazing returns, which left them broke. When they saw me, they suddenly remembered they had a son. Then, one day, after I hadn't spoken to them in years, they showed up at our doorstep unannounced. I opened the door, surprised and immediately tense. They didn't look happy.
Scott, what the hell is this? You think you can just ignore us after being successful?
Without being invited in, both my parents just marched past me into my house.
We're your parents. You need to take care of us now that you've done well for yourself.
Claire, who had been in the kitchen, came to my side, slipping her hand into mine.
I think it's time for you to leave. Scott doesn't owe you anything.
Who the hell do you think you are? This is none of your business.
It is my business. Scott is my husband, and I'm not going to stand by and let you treat him like this.
Scott, do you really want to throw your family away for this woman? Blood is thicker than water. Scott, you better put this beach in her place, or so help me, I'll make her eat her words.
I took a deep breath, my heart racing. I had always dreaded this moment, but now that it was here, I felt a strange sense of calm. Claire is my wife, and if you take a step towards her, I will protect her. Blood doesn't mean anything if there's no love or respect. I'm done. You don't get to treat me like this anymore. I think it would be best if you both left and didn't come back.
Oh, is that so? You think? Isn't that funny? The first thought that you ever had, that small empty head of yours, and it's one that will get you in trouble.
My father roared and charged towards Claire. It was obvious that he intended to attack her. I jumped in front of her and thrust my arms out, stopped him in his tracks, and then pushed him so hard that he tumbled backwards and slammed into the wall behind him. The force of it knocked the wind out of him, and he crumpled to the floor, trying to catch his breath. After a few minutes of staring tensely at each other, my mother finally helped my father to his feet, and they left furious and shouting insults as they walked away. I thought that would be the end of it, that they'd finally leave me alone. But I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, they kept trying to force their way back into my life. They'd show up at our house, leave nasty voicemails, even harass Claire on social media. It all came to a head one night when they showed up at our house again, banging on the door. I opened it, ready to tell them to leave, but my father shoved past me, barging into the living room.
You don't get to shut us out like this, Scott. We're your family, and you don't just get to walk away. That beach that you married has no right to take you away from us.
I felt a surge of anger, one that I'd kept buried for years. I wanted to hit him until my arms were too tired, but I kept my anger in check and tried to get him to leave by speaking to him. Get out. You're not welcome here anymore or ever again.
You ungrateful little brat. We raised you, gave you everything, and this is how you repay us?
Enough. You've done nothing but hurt Scott his entire life. You have no right to be here. Now leave before we call the police and have you dragged out like the dogs that you are.
The police? Do you really think we are afraid of the police?
Without a word, Claire picked up her phone and started dialing. I watched as my parents' faces fell, realizing she wasn't bluffing. My father made a move towards Claire, making it look like he was going to swipe the phone from her hands, but I cleared my throat and picked up a baseball bat that was near to the front door. As soon as he saw it, he stopped moving towards her and even took a step away from her.
Fine, call the cops. Let everyone see what a coward your husband is.
Say whatever you need to say, because the next time I see you, I won't hesitate to use this bat. Both my parents looked incredibly surprised and more than a little fearful. For a long time, they had always seen me as a defenseless child, but now, they finally saw the strong and powerful adult that I had become. I didn't feel like a coward. For the first time in my life, I felt strong. I looked at my parents, seeing them for what they really were. Two miserable people who only knew how to hurt others. And I knew I was done. The police arrived soon after, escorting my parents off the property. They tried to protest, yelling about how they were my family, how they had rights, but the officers were firm, telling them to leave and not come back. As they were led away, my father turned to look at me one last time.
You'll regret this, Scott. You're nothing without us. His face a mask of hatred. No, Dad. That's where you are wrong. You are nothing without me. Without a victim to pick on, you feel powerless, and that scares the two of you more than anything else. I meant what I said. If you two come back, I will treat you like trespassers, and I will use every ounce of my strength to make sure that you walk away from the interaction bloody, or unable to walk away at all. I watched them go, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Claire slipped her hand into mine, giving it a reassuring squeeze.
You did the right thing. I know that was difficult for you.
I know. Thank you for everything. We stood there in silence for a moment, watching as the police cars drove away, taking my parents with them. I knew they'd probably try to come back, to find some way to force themselves into my life again. But I also knew that I had the strength to stand up to them, to protect myself and the family I was building with Claire. Soon after, we filed for restraining orders against my parents and invested in a couple of firearms. The closest we ever had to come to using them, though, was the one time that my parents drove up into our driveway. I saw them and ran inside and grabbed my rifle and ran back outside. The second my parents saw the gun, they immediately ran back into their car and drove away so fast that they drove into a small tree. It didn't wreck their car, but it scraped the entire right side of their car and stripped all the paint off of it there. After that, we didn't see them again. We later heard that, because of their bad investments that left them broke, they borrowed money from some loan sharks. When they couldn't pay it back, they were both beaten horribly, and the men forced them to sell their house. So, my parents sold it, repaid the debt, and now rent a one-bedroom place in a terrible neighborhood. I'd spent so many years letting them control me, letting their words define who I was. But with Claire's help, I was strong enough to never let that happen again. I had chosen love, chosen respect, chosen the life I wanted for myself. And I knew, no matter what happened, I'd never let them take that away from me again. There are days when I wish I could go back in time and tell the younger version of me to just hold on, that there would be better days ahead, but I know that won't happen. Nope. Instead, all I can do is thank God for bringing Claire into my life. Without her, I would still be lost. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel.